Welcome to my cardinal paint tutorial. The colors we're using today are a orangey red, bright blue, yellow, black, and white. And I'm going to be mixing black with a little bit of yellow and blue to try to create a brown, a gray brown, to start with branches first. We'll do a little bit of mixing today, but I wanted to provide the solid colors as much as possible to make it easier. But this, I wanted to learn a little bit of color mixing. Any type of a tone of gray or brown to your liking will be our branches that we'll start with. Some pictures I start with a background, but this one it seemed fun and even a little more abstract to get the picture in first and then create the background afterwards. So we're using our medium-sized brush. You should have a medium brush and a small brush in your packet to get those branches in. One of the things I love about painting leaves and branches is there's really no right or wrong. This is a template guide for you, but you can really take your branches anywhere you want to. As soon as the brush hits the canvas, this is your painting. And you also have the print in your packet as a guide to go by. Again, a loose guide, and take it where you want to take it. Okay, now we're going to go to a more solid black to get those black colors into the cardinal himself. It's really gorgeous, and we love watching the cardinals play in our backyard, males and females coming together. Which was one of the reasons I love cardinals this time of year. Okay, next, you can take that fine brush to get any smaller lines, but to handle the details in the bird. Now we're going on to our red. This is a primary red. In some paint colorings it might be called a vermilion, but it's more of an orange base red. And fill in just this is just a base coat. You can come back with highlights and your shadows afterward. We're just getting the base coat colors filled in with this red. This is where it might be fun to put on a thicker layer and give him a little bit of brush stroke texture of his feathers. Doesn't have to be completely smooth. You can really glop it on there and give him some texture. More the merrier. I take a little bit of a twirl with this medium brush and do the base color of the berries. And again, this is just your base color. Once this is applied and we've got the base in, it makes it easier to come back and give each one a little shadow underneath. Some are darker than others if they're under other berries. And then we'll have highlights at the end to really make them pop. Right now we're just getting on the base coat colors. This is your, I guess it's kind of a holly. I didn't really do holly leaves here, so I guess it's kind of an imaginary berries. You can add as many as you like, and you could even modify the leaves to be more like holly leaves if that's what you'd like to do. I wanted the leaves to stay very simple. So this must be some other kind of berry. I added another one there. Okay. Now I'm making a dark shadow to the berries by adding green. Green and red are complementary colors. And so adding a little green into the red is what gives it more of the best shadow that you're going to get. And that's with the green added into it. Kind of imagine my light source usually is always coming from the top right. So we've got a bottom left little shadow underneath. I'm just kind of twirling in there, and you can do that with just a little twirl of the brush. Create your shadow. In my classes, we go over complementary colors a good bit and mixing them together to create different tones, shadow tones of grays and taupes. And that's another class I offer. I have a sea turtle color chart that we do in one of my local classes. Okay, now we're going to get into painting the greenery. We've got a nice kind of a sap green here that is our base. And once you get the base painted on with all of the leaves, then it's easier to come back and do your highs and your lows. So this is just your base. Again, it's nice sometimes within the leaf to have some variation with your brush strokes and the tones. So as you can see, I added a little darker there. It makes it a lot more fun to create some more brush strokes in the variance of the leaves as they're flowing and curling. Leaves are really fun to paint. I spent many years enjoying painting greenery and vines in homes. During the 90s, I was a muralist and did a lot of gardens. There's just something about bringing nature into the house that gives us peace. So I'm hoping that's what this little cardinal can do for you. I want you to have peace in the painting of him and then peace in enjoying him. Art should not be stressful. Okay, I've added a little yellow into my green now to just give us some highlighted tones. And you can also add some white in there to create that beautiful chartreuse color highlight you'll see on some of the leaves. It's where the sun is hitting the leaves and gives it a lot of variation. It's really a pretty color. I debated on making that one of the colors in this packet, but I knew you guys could make it a little white and yellow, or a lot of white and yellow. There we go. It's just a beautiful color. And that's up to you. You know, you could have also just stayed with white on your, and green to do a different tone. These are leaves that have a yellow hue to them. Some leaves don't. Some leaves have more of a blue hue. And that's a pretty tone too. If you would like to just add some blue and white to your green, you can do that and create more of a phthalo tone to your leaves, which is really pretty in winter. I am in love with chartreuse. Okay, so now we're doing his little talons, little feet, and we've created more of a blue-gray with blue and white, a little bit of black. And that can also be a nice highlight color on the branch itself, especially if it's a wintry branch, but just one that has those gray tones in it and the light's hitting it a certain way. And that's also a great color to do the highlight around his eye. And then take your fine brush to fill in that round eye and in between his beak and even more details. We're going to use the black. You can also just mix red and green, a little green into a lot of red to do the shadows in the bird, but the black works here as well. Get some dark shadows. And I put a stronger shadow underneath his little toes that are wrapping around the branch. And that branch is going to have more of a shadow there under him. He is casting a dark shadow on the branch just by being there. So this black just really adds a little more detail to all those branches, gives some of these little berries a stem to hang from. Just give yourself a little bit more shadowing. Okay, yellow and red together. We got a kind of an orange tone to do his beak. And that same yellow with a hint of red. It's kind of a peachy color, is a great highlight color. Where the light is hitting his back. Kind of just an orange-based highlight. Okay. Now getting into white. Little touch of blue in it to create kind of the blue, very light blue background. But I wanted this to have more of an abstract feel, so you can create your background without even touching the rest of the painting or hitting up against it. But this is an area you can be extremely loose in and glop on the paint. See lots of brush strokes and just make it fun and abstract. And what I'm doing is getting this base color on of a very, very soft light blue, but then subtly dragging in a few of the other colors. It's actually something I used to do in wall murals years ago. See here, I don't mind if a little bit of that red from the berries is seeping into the background colors and bleeding into it, but it's just really pretty to have the image itself soaking in. Kind of reminds me of a watercolor, even though we're definitely working in acrylics here. Quick drying acrylics. I'm not striving to create a lot of detail here. We're really staying loose and thick. You can always buy a gel mat. I guess it's called a matte gel by Golden, or some of those other Liquitex I think makes one too, that is a colorless, and you can add it to your paint to make it even thicker if that's something you want to do for your paintings. For this one, we're just going to move through it with the paints we've got. And you can see some of the, because acrylics do dry fast, you can really see those brush strokes in there, which I think is kind of fun. I don't want it to even get too light, and I don't want it to just be a soft gray. I want to have some color in that background. I actually did 2 different painted versions of this during this tutorial, and one background ended up being much darker than the other, so it is fun every time I paint this image and it turns out differently. And you may want to try it several times, or paint it with a group of friends or kids or grandkids, and just see how different everyone's turns out, which is really fun to not have the same picture, just to see how everyone else interprets this scene. We all have our own interpretation. I debated on whether to include a larger brush in this project, which is sometimes fun for the background to keep it extremely loose, but given the size of this 8x10, I think this medium brush worked fine. And it is fun to see all these little brush strokes in the background. You want them going all the different directions. When you have an area you do want to smooth out, though, the vertical, keeping them all vertical does kind of tend to smooth the background out a bit. Keep having to add a little bit more blue to this white so it doesn't get too light. Yep, every time you get lint or hair, pull it out quickly before the acrylic dries. And it's just nice to see a few of these color variations. See how they're showing up in the brush strokes. When we get through this whole background, then we'll add some of the colors into it as well. But you know, acrylics, one of the things I do love about acrylics is it dries fast, but it doesn't make it easy to blend. We have to just stay soft with our blending. And creating this background kind of helps you recreate and establish the shapes of the picture. Add some ruggedness to your branches, just with the background touching up against it, and it might create a little bit more ruggedness and variation in our leaf shapes, our leaves. Got a little bit more area there under the bird to do. There we go. And don't forget that space between his little legs. I'm sorry, I can go off camera here a little bit. I've just gotten into creating some videos over the past year, and still not an expert, but just trying to help share the process. So right now we're just painting this background color onto our edges of the canvas. This is called a wrapped canvas. It's nice to take the painting all the way around the edges and make it a hangable product. You don't have to frame it, you can just hang it. Another option that is pretty I've been using lately, and I have a few videos about it, is just painting black around the edges. And as it kind of seeps in on the corners, it gives it more of a vintagey vignette look. Okay, so now I've added a little bit of that red and white to the background to give us some pink tones. You can see I've stayed really light with it, and I'm doing kind of a soft dragging vertically, just staying vertical with the strokes on the colors here. We don't want to get too wild with it. Just keep it soft. So stayed very light with that pink, and kept the brush strokes vertical. Here I thought I'd add a little bit more yellow to the picture overall. This is just adding some detail into the leaves. You can see kind of create the top bright edge is, like I said, where I kind of envision the sunlight hitting them and creating some lighter variations than we've already got. In the same respect, that chartreuse color, you can drag a little bit into the background. It just softens up the edges of the whole picture. If that's something that ends up being too intense, because you know acrylics also darken as they dry, and if you feel like the background colors dry too intensely, you can always come back over them with more of that blue and soften them up. I just added a little highlight to his beak. And let's see. Dark green and red. Again, that's the shadow color. I just felt like it needed a little bit more. The berries that are behind other berries, like down under there, the whole berry might be the shadow. This is just to create that really dark tone of the red and green. I hope sometimes learning to mix complementaries like that can help with other pictures. Oh, I've even added some black to it now. Trying to still define those toes a little bit. They're blending into the background canvas, so that's okay. All right. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the painting. One final touch here. I wanted to come back and do a few more highlights on the talons, as well as a little teeny highlight, a blip of a highlight on those berries. Really makes them punch. You can hit each one that's got some light on it. The ones underneath may not have any light, again, you can also use that white. I love adding a stronger white at the end. Now this is kind of just a pink I'm going back in. You can even use solid white though, and creating some of the veining on the leaves. A little bit more detail. Depends on how much detail you'd like to have. I hope you have enjoyed the painting today, and I'd love to see online any samples.